Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Now, this is the preformed connecting rod for the treadle grinder. This has got to be formed around the crank arm. There's a pin on the crank arm, and I'm going to have to take a dolly and shape this around that arm to make it come out round. I have to open it up in order to get it slipped over the arm. But before I do that, I want to thread this end of it to 1/4 20, because that's how I'm going to hook it to the crank arm, to the treadle. The treadle has a single hole in it big enough for a 1/4 20 bolt. I'm going to thread this to 1/4 20. I'll put a double nut on the top, slip it through the treadle arm, and then put a double nut on the bottom. That way this will have enough movement to move back and forth around in there, and I can adjust for length on it. Now, I believe what they did in the original was they put a hook in this and put it through the arm. But I want to put the double nuts just because I think it's more of a straight line pull and works better. This is the reason you file down the edges. I don't want to be banging into this with my fingers and cutting my fingers all up. There. One crank rod done. the purpose of rubbing this thing all over the grindstones? Well, grindstones are made up of grains that are bonded together. Now the grains can be all kinds of things. Can be diamonds, can be aluminum oxide, can be silica, can be any one of 100 things that have hardness and the ability to fracture and have an edge, a sharp edge on them. So they're held together in a matrix. The matrix is some kind of material that binds them together. As you use a grinding wheel, each time you touch the wheel with whatever you're grinding, whether it's another stone or a piece of metal, the metal is going to be scratched and scraped away by the sharp edges of the grit. Now those sharp edges are going to dull because they're very hard. That makes them brittle. They tend to fracture and fall away. So the edges gradually dull off. Now that's not a big problem because the binder that holds the stone together, that holds the grinding wheel together, is engineered on one of these fancier new wheels. It's engineered to let go of that bit of grit, that abrasive grain, as soon as the pressure becomes high enough that it fractures the bond between the grain and the binder. And that means as soon as the grain gets dull, it pops out and falls away. So the stone gradually shrinks. And it'd be nice if it always shrank in exactly the right spots, you know, that it always stayed flat and perfect. But it doesn't. Except in a few cases where somebody has engineered the thing to always follow a certain size and a certain pattern, and as you grind it wears away and stays close, you have to dress the wheel. That's what this is. It's a dressing stick. It's just a chunk of silicon carbide with a fairly high strength binder in it. So it goes in there and it tears away the chunks of grit on the surface of the wheel that are dulled. And it takes those low spots where the grit has worn down and fractured and fallen off, takes the worn spots and levels the high spots down to them. That's something that you do as you're using it. You rub this on the high spots, it wears the high spots down until they're even with the low spots. Then you should stop. Otherwise you're just wasting your wheel. So that's what I was doing with this thing. I was dressing the wheel. You want to do that pretty much every time you're done grinding something if you want to maintain your grinding wheel in good condition. That way every time you start it up, it's got a fresh new surface on it. It's ready to cut or sharpen or do whatever you need to do with it. So a little bit of preventative maintenance before you stop using it means next time you want it, you got a good one. So now I have two connecting rods and a cross link for the treadles. Just need to go put these on, but I'm probably going to get my hands cleaned up and go have supper first. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching. And now you know how to use a die to thread a piece of steel, and also how to dress a grinding wheel.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union, without the express written permission of the parents or legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.